Okay, we are live. Thanks everybody for checking this out, whether you're joining us live or watching this later on YouTube. I'm Mike. Coach Ricky is here. So Ricky is the SB Nation basketball editor, and there are actually a couple of things I learned about his writing through his fake sports dynasty with the Leathernecks that I didn't know, and I highlighted this one today. So as a real basketball writer about real basketball for SB Nation, you led all SB Nation writers in traffic in 2020, and you were second in 2019, right? So pretty impressive back-to-back years for your real writing.
That's so funny. I am now like super humiliated that I have that as public information, but that must have been when I was trying to get a job when I was on furlough. So I think maybe I need to update the about page of my newsletter website, but yeah, I guess that is true.
Right. That was when you were thinking you might need to find a new place to work, but now you don't. You're with SB Nation full time again. And but hey, it's archived now here forever. The brag about your traffic, if you don't want to have it in your bio, we've got it here for everybody to know that you were driving some serious views to SB Nation even before the Leathernecks.
Yeah. I mean, got to do it, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. No, let's talk about your fake basketball team. So for anybody who is not aware, there are actually some links down in the description of this video that you can check out. One goes to, I think it's the very first post that Ricky ever did about his team. And another one goes to his newsletter where you can see all of the seasons archived. You've played 32 or 33 seasons. Which one is it out of 40 seasons?
Finished 32 seasons. So we're starting year 33 on Sunday on my Twitch stream.
So, and the Twitch stream is where a lot of the magic happens. You've got a YouTube channel, but all the live stuff is happening on your Twitch stream. And so Sunday night, year 33. And I guess I want to kind of start at the beginning for a second. I've read a little bit about this, but I'd like to hear more from you about when was it that you really got into college hoops, 2K8, and you did a lot of playing the game before this very celebrated Leathernecks run.
Yeah. So I would say I owe it all to my buddy, Scott Phillips. Scott is also a basketball writer. He was on TV the last couple seasons with NBC Sports Chicago, being their high school basketball beat writer. He wrote national college basketball coverage for NBC as well. Scott's a great writer, and he's one of my good friends. We met when we were interning in college at the Chicago Sun-Times. We've been tight since. So we've been friends for a decade. And I guess around the time we met was when this game came out, 2007, 2008. And I guess I was introduced to the game because I would go hang out with Scott and we would play it against each other, where we would both have a program and we would do exactly what I'm doing in the game, except when we actually faced each other, we would play the games ourselves. And so, there were many days where, many weekends I would just go hang out at Scott's place and we'd be playing video games for, 4 or 5 hours, just trying to get through 2 seasons. And I think Scott and I finished probably 3 40-year dynasties in the last 10 years. And we would just sort of like build up the mythology ourselves, kind of, right? Like we would never detail it in any way, but like we would talk trash to each other and we would like remember, we would keep track of national titles and, 5-star recruits and some stuff like that. Like he would open up a document and, scribble it down. So that is mostly how I always played the game with my friend. And I thought that was like a cool way to do it. One problem is that he would whoop my ass when we would play one-on-one. So, we would like match up sometimes we would match up in the NCAA tournament and like he would win 90% of the games, 80% of the games. He's a much better video game player than I am at like the actual mechanics of playing the game, but I would win enough to where it was like still somewhat interesting.
Right.
So then basically, I think what happened is that I never actually owned the game myself, but my buddy Zach had it. So I got Zach's copy, and that's the one I'm actually still playing right now. And I was able to dig out my old Xbox 360 and Yeah, I don't remember exactly when I started playing it again by myself, but it was probably like maybe 6 months before the series started. I was able to get my old Xbox out, get a copy of the game, and then I started playing myself again, just as like a dynasty, because Scott had moved from the city to the suburbs. So I was like jonesing for the game, and I didn't have my buddy there to play it with me anymore. So I started doing it myself. And yeah, the idea for this series came when the pandemic hit. I was gearing up to cover the real NCAA tournament. And of course, that was canceled.
Right.
And so I had always wanted to write about this game and about how, in my opinion, I thought it was the most fun sports game ever made. And at SBNation.com, we had done a few pieces on similar subjects. A former colleague of mine, Matt Allentuck, wrote about why MVP Baseball 05 was one of the best games ever. And I remember that article was a successful article. So that was kind of what I was thinking with College Hoops 2K8. I was like, maybe I'll just write about how it's such a cool game or how I like to play it. But what I really realized is like the game is so deep. It has like all these features that I've never even touched because I always play it the same way. I started Dynasty with a small school and try to build it up. And most of the time I will jump to bigger schools. That I decided not to do this time. I decided to stay with Western Illinois. But basically I was, a working sports writer right when the pandemic started. There was no live sports. So I just sort of had the idea of like, I think I'm going to actually play through a dynasty and basically journal my way through it. And I did the first 2 seasons, I think. And I like took the screenshots and I took notes and then I just sat on it. I was like, maybe this is too dumb to actually do. Like, will anyone care about this at all? Who could possibly think this is a cool thing to do? But I slowly pieced it together and like right in the post, it's like a puzzle because you have to upload so much media and there's so many points in the season that like you need to like match the data of what happened to, the blog post. So,
and it's detailed for anybody who hasn't checked it out. Your posts are detailed. You've got the screenshots. You're talking about the roster. You're talking about the players on your Leathernecks team, the way you and other people talk about real basketball players.
Yeah. So that was kind of the idea, right? I think in the first post, I tweeted like the day before I published the first post, and I was like, just wrote the dumbest thing of my career. I just threw that out there. And then I responded to it the next day, and I'm like, here it is. Here's the first season. I'm doing this thing. At that point, I didn't know I was going to do it for 40 years. The tagline was, could I win the national title?
Right.
And yeah, we took it from there. The first blog post, I did 2 seasons. And then I published the next 2 seasons, I believe. And then I got the news that I was going to have to go on furlough for work with the pandemic. So at that point, I basically just finished the series until my last day on the job. And on that last post, I moved it to a Substack. And I did it on the Substack for 3 months. I was fortunate enough to be able to come back to SB Nation. So the series has returned to SB Nation ever since, but I still send out the link via the Substack list.
Right.
And yeah, I'm finishing out the series. It's been a long, a long project. I started it when the pandemic first began, and here we are almost a year later, and like the pandemic is still very much surging, but sports are just back to normal, and guys are getting COVID, and no one really cares. And some of it has lingering effects. If you look at players like Mohamed Bamba, who had it on the Magic, even like Yon Minkata on the White Sox said he felt the effects of it last year. He had a down season, so. It's just kind of surreal that it's gone on this long. The pandemic's gone on this long, and just all the circumstance around it.
Yeah, I mean, you'll end this thing probably around a year after you started it. This 40-year run in the game, at the pace you're moving, I guess. Have you figured that out about when this will wrap up?
Well, yeah, I have been thinking about it recently because I'm probably going to have to pause it for the NCAA tournament because typically that was my busiest part of the calendar.
Right.
Now my job has changed a little bit, so I'm not sure how busy it will be, but like I should probably be writing about real college basketball while that's going on. I have still been doing that a little bit. But, working the series into my workflow and still, making it just one of the things that I do now.
So you mentioned about, you tweeted like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever written. And I remember picking up along the way and maybe one of your early recaps or something, you weren't really sure how people would react. How quickly did it gain traction? And like, what was it right away? Everybody like, this is really cool. And of course you should be telling us about this team.
I think the second post really blew up. Like it spread on Facebook a lot, or there was like some other traffic source where it came from, but I think it was Facebook. A lot of people shared it there. And so that second post really gained a lot of notoriety. I don't know how many views it had, but it had quite a few. And then after that, I think the third post or the fourth post, we lost on a ridiculous buzzer beater in the tournament. And it was like totally heartbreaking. It was the 7th year. And that was the last post on SB Nation before I moved it to the newsletter.
Okay.
So, I just had the clip of like, I lost to, I think it was NC State. And basically who would go on to become probably the most storied player in program history, my center, Deke Van, in his junior year,
man.
Took kind of a bad shot, could have ran out the clock, didn't, took a jumper, missed it. NC State got the ball, pushed it up court, and made like a 38-foot three-pointer at the buzzer to win. I want to say that was around a 32 game maybe, and we had never made it out of the first round.
Okay.
So then that got a bunch of notoriety too, or I don't know about notoriety, but it created interest in the project. And then, I had the link to the new Substack site, and I got thousands of signups, that day, the next couple days, and it grew to about 7,500, 600 signups.
Right.
And people have unsubscribed along the way.
Yeah.
Which I don't blame them. No hard feelings, guys. Sometimes people just respond to my newsletter and they just say unsubscribe. And then I need to like send them back instructions on how to actually unsubscribe because I can't do it for them.
It's like when they came on board in year 7, they weren't prepared to stick through 40 seasons of this thing.
Right. Which I do not blame them. And then I have some real life friends who are like, you know what, going to be honest, I open the email so you get that click-through rate, and then I just delete it right away. I'm never reading this. And I'm like, you know what? That's actually kind of sweet. Like, thank you. I appreciate that.
They're not going to give you the unsubscribe. So that was year 7. And then it was year 8 when you won the whole thing, right? And that was the year I actually went back and pulled these stats from one of your posts today because I was trying to remember. So I think I kind of got dialed in to what you were doing around this time. Like my first live stream where I watched you on Twitch, I want to say you'd won this title already. But I was looking back at these numbers and it said in year 8, you wrote that you had 7,229 people watched at least part of the stream with a high of more than 2,400 concurrent viewers during the closing moments of the national title game victory over Kansas. Amazing. Yeah. Like, did that just exceed your expectations like way more than you ever thought when you had that many people tuned into a fake basketball game?
Totally. It was so crazy because from that point, previously, none of this was on Twitch. I was basically just doing it all myself. I was videotaping the games, and then I was chopping that up into a video and putting that in the post. And it was so labor intensive. It was taking me I can't even put a time estimate, 10 hours total to do one of those posts with the video editing and the photo cropping and just everything. I mean, it was crazy. But I said that if I made the Final Four, I would stream it on Twitch. My computer cannot handle Twitch. It's a MacBook Air, but I don't have the power in my hardware to actually broadcast it. So I'm like, I'm just going to do this through my phone. If people think it sucks, I mean, I have no expectations of what's actually going to happen. I knew that I had, 7,000 people on the newsletter. So I'm like, well, let's see what happens with this. It's like kind of crazy that this ever happened. And yeah, it really blew up on Twitter, I think. Like a lot of people were just talking about it, sharing the link. People were invested in it. It was really funny, really unexpected. I did not save that stream. That stream sort of just like disappeared after, the day. I don't think I exported it to YouTube in time or whatever. I thought, I'm still kind of an amateur Twitch guy, obviously, but it's lost in the history of time. And you know what? That's fine by me. I feel like I was getting fired up, and it was a really fun night. The Twitch commenters who were there that night, they started like egging me on to celebrate. So I was drinking Malort, which is this really disgusting Chicago liquor. And it was just like a fun, totally unexpected night.
Those are the clips that are in your One Shining Moment video that you have, right? That was that championship?
Yeah, there's been a couple One Shining Moment videos, at least 2, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, that was one. And then also from that first championship, I hit up my colleague, Mike Rutherford, who's a great basketball writer covering Louisville at the website cardchronicle.com, an SB Nation site. And Mike did national college basketball coverage for us for years. And Mike hosted a ESPN radio show in Louisville for years. And like Mike is super famous to people in Louisville. And I texted Mike and I'm like, hey, dude, I got my stupid video game Final Four coming up. Do you think you could like make a hype video? And he's like, yeah, for sure. Like I'll do a voiceover. I'm at the studio right now. He was at the radio studio. So he sends me like this 2 or 3 minute, just like beautiful performance where he's just like hyping it up like it is a real team. And I kind of cut up some pictures and did a YouTube hype video for it with some clips and some pictures. And that was a really fun thing from the championship as well. So I kind of feel like that was for sure the peak of it.
Right.
And like people were even like telling me at the time, they're like, you should lose to like maintain interest in the series. And, it was a blowout. I think we won both games in record fashion. The one thing that I regret, or one of the things I regret about the series, is that in the recap email, I like spoiled it. I was basically like, we won the national title. And I think I did that because I just felt like so many people had heard about it because through Twitter, there was just like a lot of chatter. I was tweeting about it like probably 50 times that night. You know what I mean? So I just did it. Like I assumed everyone knew the outcome if they, were familiar with the project just from seeing me tweet about it basically. But yeah.
And you're, speaking of Twitter, so a couple things that are interesting. One is it inspired people to start fake Twitter accounts for, I know at least one player, Deke Van has a Twitter account. And then there were real people from the sports world tweeting about some of your games, like, I mean, your colleagues really, but you're a real sports writer, you're friends with real sports writers. And so I remember there were other writers talking about like Deke Van being like the greatest fictional player in history. And that must have been surreal too. Like what were some of the bigger things you heard from people back then?
Yeah. So the funniest thing was that, so like Deke Van, who I told you at the end of year 7, which was his junior year, he takes the bad shot and we lose basically because of it. So he gets his redemption and it's like, you couldn't write it this good. Like I didn't know what was going to happen, but it just happened. And then he becomes the MOP of year 8. So then at like, during that stream, which got, a decent amount of publicity in a small corner of the internet, a t-shirt or apparel company, Home Field Apparel, which is an awesome brand. Follow them on Twitter. They make really comfortable, great stuff for college, with colleges. They approached me and they're like, hey, this was a cool thing you did last night. We can make a t-shirt. So they made a Deke Van t-shirt. What's going on, Abby? And we sold some of those t-shirts. And then I think the tweet you were referring to is from John Hollinger, who worked in the Memphis Grizzlies front office for a long time. He created the basketball stat PER, and I've read his work for a long time, and that was kind of cool. And I also like that he doesn't follow me, but he does follow the fictional Deke Van Twitter account, which somebody made. So that's kind of funny. Everyone always likes when I bring up that anecdote. So yeah, someone made a fictional Deke Van Twitter account. Someone made a fan page on Instagram. Later, it became a Reddit page, which I think has about 400 maybe people who follow that Reddit page. But then the Reddit page gave way to a Discord. And the Discord is where the discussion is really popping to this day. People are always chatting about the Dynasty, ranking the program's all-time best players in the Discord. So you can join that if you want to. And sort of what was all spawned from that is that, a lot of the readers would create things around the project, which has been by far the coolest part, just to see like the community sort of build around it. Definitely never something I imagined would happen. And now it's sort of just like a smaller sort of diehard group, but so many people from the community have built things either for my project or they built their own spin-offs. So one thing that was really cool was this guy, Evan, who was based in Seattle. He made a spreadsheet with every recruit I've ever had. And I don't know if there's a part where I can like share this spreadsheet with you, but this spreadsheet is like seriously insane. The fans still update it to this day, and they just did a big update to it this week where they started making per 40 stats for every player in history. I mean, this spreadsheet is like so much better than my actual write-ups. It's comical. Wow. And so that like has every recruit, like what they were recruited, how they progressed through their career, their height, weight, what they accomplished. It's super sick. And now we got, the stats in there. And I didn't do any of that. So full credit to the community, which has been super awesome and supportive. And I feel really grateful that, I ever got to make all these new friends now. I have friends all over the country, all over the world. I've heard from people from this project. So that has been very cool. And then a lot of the members of the community also built spinoffs. So, one of the people who followed it, Abby, she did a spinoff with the Leathernecks. She bought the game and she's been running it herself on her Twitch, and her picture's crystal clear HD, and she's got her own players, and a lot of the communities come over and watched her, and that's been super awesome. And then this guy, Luke, who's based in North Carolina, he started a spin-off dynasty of NCAA Football 14. And I sort of plugged it a few times. And now so many people have come to Coach Luke's. You should really have Luke on this show because he's a great guy. And he's, taken the community and like built it up himself over there. So that's been really cool to see him do that. And he's on like, year 30 or something of his project or more than that. And then this guy, Matt, who's based in Florida, he started it with Madden 20. So now Matt has a newsletter, and he's basically taking Luke's players from NCAA Football 14, where Luke started with Akron, and then he went to Wyoming. So he's basically taking the players from that series and drafting them into Madden, and Matt's running that spinoff. So just to see the way it's grown has been really cool, and the way like the community is kind of formed around it, and that's been my favorite part of it.
Yeah, the community around streaming is so cool. And I just feel it's been so crucial during the pandemic. It's amazing to see the growth of some of the Twitch streamers that I've followed. Really, I only got into Twitch during this pandemic. I'd been on it a little bit before it. But I'd watched a lot of gamers on YouTube, and I got really into Twitch during this pandemic. And I think, you start to comment with the same people over time, and who you're attracted to certain sort of personalities, like you're running your stream and other people running their own little fictional worlds they've created. But for everybody who's following it, you start to follow the team or the game, whatever they're doing, like you would a real sports team. And it's really amazing to watch that. I just feel like the community aspect of streaming is really what drives a lot of it, and the quality of the content. It has to be interesting. A good story has to be getting told. You mentioned your phone and doing the streams. That was one of the things that blew me away the first time I tuned into the live stream. You're here talking to us like this, and then all of a sudden you picked up your phone and you walked over and you're setting it up just right in front of the TV. And I'm like, no, this isn't really how it's happening, is it? And then you line up your TV perfectly. And if I would have come into the stream at that point, I don't think I would have known that I was watching a phone propped up. The sound is probably, the audio might be the only thing that I would have thought sounded like it wasn't plugged directly in. But that blew me away the first time and actually made me even more interested. I was like, okay, this guy is just diehard committed to this. I'm in.
Yeah, I personally think it's super embarrassing and pathetic that I never professionalized my stream. And I do hope to one day do that. But my girlfriend's also like, I think like your streaming career should probably be over after this project. I think it's just annoying her living in a 1-bedroom apartment when she has to spend a lot of time with me. So yeah, I've done it all on my phone. It's sort of a joke because Abby, who did the spinoff, her Leatherneck stream is like crystal clear. She's got like a ticker on the bottom giving you information. And mine, when I get a phone call, the stream shuts off if I forget to put it on Do Not Disturb. So, I'm not proud of this. I should be a little bit more tech savvy. But, we're the low tech necks. And it's stuck this long. So I've been waiting on a new computer for a little bit. I haven't gotten it yet. So
no, why change it? You'd be like the indie band who sold out or something.
There you go.
You got to stick with it's. You're like like a punk band just doing something real lo-fi. I mean, it works. I think it's great. So before you wrap up, by the 40th year, your goal is to set the record for most NCAA championships. You want to beat John Wooden's he got 10, right? So you need 11 to beat him.
Yeah. How many years did Wooden coach though? Like that I would like to look up. Did he go over 40 years? I should Google that. But for sure, that is the current goal. The goalposts have moved on the series, right? Like the goal originally was to win the national title. And then I won in year 8. I won in year 12. I think then I didn't win till year 20. And then we made a change on the dynasty, which can be debated, and it's definitely affected the numbers. But the change has been that, I never touched the game. I basically just put the controller in the middle, put it down, and watch the game. But it would be frustrating because you like set the rotation of how many minutes you want each guy to play, and I would do that manually. But then the CPU coach wouldn't follow it. So I would have guys out there for like 38 minutes in a game, and they were like obviously winded. And it's like, oh my God, please sub. Like you need to get the bench guys in. These substitution patterns were terrible. So in around year 20, Wooden coached 29 years. There you go. Wow. Incredible run for Wooden. Of course, I've cheated less. So I have that going for me. But I like the way Wooden, pay all the players, but I hope they all get paid. But I lost my train of thought now.
Sorry, I popped that up there and threw you off.
What were we talking about? So the substitution pattern. Basically, I decided that I was going to start taking manual timeouts, moving the controller over, timeout, make my subs. But then what's funny is that I would put the controller back in the middle. So like the computer could totally just undo my subs right away, which oftentimes would happen. And the fans would get so upset. They would always want me to put, I had this power forward named Alan Cunningham, who was just a monster. And he was one of the most beloved players in program history. Great inside out game. He had feathery touch from deep. The fans would always say, put Ham at point. Ham at the 1 became a rallying cry. And I would do it, and then the computer would just sub him out right away. So that created like its own challenges. But once I started manually subbing, then I immediately went on a tear. And I think it also coincided with my coach developing, where like I had hit these certain points where you could build up your coach. So, when you get 500 career wins or when you win the national title or as you achieve things, you get attribute points. And so I think by year 20, my coach was like pretty much as good as he was going to get. Like there's a lot of points I'm just never going to get, such as get the number 1 recruit in the country. I haven't done that yet. I landed the number 10 recruit, but you don't get a coaching point for the number 10 recruit. So my coach got better, and then my recruiting got better. And if you look at the rosters from those years, I mean, they're as good as the rosters today. 13 years later, my coach, I don't think, has improved too much. But I think the manual subbing really changed sort of the success rate. So suddenly I started winning a bunch. And then the question was, is this too easy? Like I still had only won back-to-back titles, I think once or twice. And I have 7 now through 32 or 33 years, but I haven't won now in 5 years. And we've been doing manual subbing. And for fans who have followed the series recently, we've had some just heartbreaking, really exciting losses in the tournament, which like is pretty awesome that they're close games. Because for a while we were winning every game by like 30 points. And quite frankly, it was boring. Like we were too good. And then my recruiting fell off just a bit. This is awesome. I didn't see the comments on the side. Thank you everyone for checking this interview out. Yeah, when we started doing the manual subbing, we won a bunch. So winning a bunch was cool, but it was just like, I almost thought it was too easy. But now we're in the home stretch, and I'm probably not going to surpass Wooden. So we'll see. The numbers would have been higher, I think, if I would have been manually subbing from the start. Like in some of those early years, like we literally lost because the coach was not following my substitution patterns.
Right. So that really changed things. And then it was the recruiting kind of falling off. You think that has caused it to swing back the other direction some, where you've had some of these losses, like the heartbreaker to Ole Miss. And who was it the year before?
It's hard for me to even remember. Oklahoma State, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
My recruiting's been good, but the thing is like I landed the number 10, the number 10 recruit. He was the highest recruit I ever got. Sammy Yan, a 2-guard out of California. And he just wasn't that good. Like basically his attributes or his like strong suits were in the wrong attributes. He was like a great defensive rebounder as a 6'4" 2-guard. It's like, well, what's that going to do for me? He can't shoot. And, he's not like a dynamic finisher in terms of his driving ability to the basket. So the recruiting did fall off a little bit. I mean, basically, the challenge of the game is recruiting. Right. Because I have less recruiting points to work with than the big schools. So if I was to go to Illinois instead of Western Illinois, I would have like, twice the available flights to go visit recruits. And I would just have like more weight to throw around as a recruiter. So the margin for error in terms of my recruiting is super small. For one, because, each of the prospects in the game, the recruits, they will like base their decision off one of like 5 things. And one of those things is program prestige, or like they want to play at a big school. So they'll tell you like, I want to play at a big school. Well, if you just happen to come across one of those guys, like even if it's a local guy, even if like everything else would line up, you're just most likely not going to land him at Western Illinois if his top priority is playing at a big school. Right. So that's like a handicap. The lack of points is a handicap. And yeah, so that's kind of been, that's the challenge of the game, to try to like maintain this level of excellence throughout. And there was a while where I'll admit I was going to go to another school. I was going to go to Iowa after I won 2 or 3 titles. My girlfriend's a student at Iowa, and I was living in Iowa City for the summer with her. And I just thought like Iowa would be a good school to jump to because, just being a guy on the internet who works in sports, like I know a lot of people who are passionate Iowa fans. Right. They have no pro team there, right? Like they just love Iowa. And there's just like some super online people in the Iowa fan base. So I was like, maybe I'll go to Iowa. We can like grow the follower base and like, give the series a second push. I can redeem Iowa basketball, which is a school that has never really won anything. But then I lost the title that I thought I was going to win. Basically, I had an undefeated team in year, I want to say 10. maybe 11. We were undefeated in the Final Four, and then we got whooped by Michigan State. We lost by like 25. And if we would have won the title, I was going to be like, well, I just won an undefeated national title. I'm the greatest ever. I'm going to Iowa. But then we lost, so I'm like, I'm going to stick with Western. And I'm glad I did. I don't think the series would be the same if I would have jumped to the bigger school. And yeah, so I'm happy with how it worked out.
So yeah, you gave up maybe the bigger salary, a little more glory, and stuck with the small school. And now you get to, finish out a 40-year run as one of the greatest coaches in NCAA history. So one thing we didn't talk about is that the game that you're playing this on, College Hoops 2K8, it was the last year they made this game. And I don't know if others, Abby mentioned this, and I've run into this as well. I've tried to buy this game, and it's like $90 on eBay. It's like, I feel like I need to have invested in GameStop stock for the past week, and then I could have the money saved up to go outbid somebody for this game. But yeah, it's tough to find out there. And I don't know if they'll ever get it worked out, but that and then the college football game that you mentioned, if either of those could ever come back to EA, it would just be phenomenal. There's so much pent-up demand for these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the game itself is just a sick game. Like, in terms of the franchise mode is deep. I'm sure some of the other modes are cool too, but, they have like a halftime show with Brian Gumbel every week. Or, like a recap show every week, and then a tournament breakdown and all that stuff. So that's really cool. In the game, we've played a little bit of the AAU League too, which is where you can scout prospects. Right. That's like ridiculously involved. And when I played, previously with my buddy Scott, we never touched the AAU League. But, that's cool too. And like we did it one time, and we ended up getting one of our highest rated recruits ever. It was this guy, JJ Bracey. And then someone made a hype video of Bracey highlights from the AAU stream that we watched, and like really like built up his legend. And that was a nice part of the mythology. So it's a really detailed game for it being made when it was made. There's so much depth to it that, at least as I remember it, I didn't feel like the games then had as much depth to them. I might have that wrong, but it just feels like a game that was almost ahead of its time in the level of detail in terms of franchise sort of management. Totally. And it's like a time capsule going back and playing that game. Like, it's Steph Curry is a sophomore at Davidson. Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love are together on UCLA. Derrick Rose is a freshman at Memphis. Michael Beasley at Kansas State. Greg Oden's on the cover. It was the year after Greg Oden was in school. So it really is like a time capsule. And I'll say personally, like, that was my favorite era of video games. Maybe it's because that's when I was like young and in college. But like, to be honest, like I used to buy Madden every year, and I would do the same thing when I was a kid in Madden and in MVP baseball and in the show. And I would like make notebooks, and I never, I'm trying to make it was like a super nerdy thing. Right. But I would just love doing it. And now, like, I've tried to play Madden again, and I have been playing Madden a little bit, actually, just for myself. But it's just like the Dynasty mode's not as good. Like, I feel like they sort of were better in 2003 through 2007. And that might just totally be my bias. But I do think that like that PS2 era of it was just some really good game making. Yeah, we have a question here. What's your next fake sports career after the 40 years? I don't know if I'm going to do one, but, I have so much fun doing the streams. I don't really have fun doing the write-ups. The write-ups now seem like a huge burden on me because they're still very time consuming. And also, like, I have real stuff to do. Yeah. And I just kind of feel bad, like, wasting my work time on it, but there is benefit to the company too. So I think like, I'm producing a lot of other stuff as well. So it's a heavy lift, you know what I mean, in my schedule. Right. Well, once real sports came back, I guess, especially, it got a lot, it's harder to fit everything in. So I don't know what I'm going to do next. I would love to keep the community so good though. So one thing I want to do when this one ends, and I'm going to say it on here so people could hold me to it, is I want to rank every player in program history in an SB Nation post. So it could be like 176 players, and I'll just write a blurb on every guy of what I remember about them and rank them all, because we're constantly sort of discussing who the greatest players are in program history. So that would probably only be for the diehards, but I think it would be really fun to do. And then in terms of my next dynasty, like, yeah, I could see myself doing it again. Maybe in a different game, maybe in this game. I don't know. I would like to do it, but I don't think I'd be writing 4,000 word recaps anymore. Like, that's not going to happen.
You have the Twitch following, you could use it, for whatever you want to switch to next. You have over 1,000 people subscribed on Twitch, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm surprised people haven't unsubscribed because there's not that many people on my streams anymore. It's a great community who's still there, but it's under 100 people typically. So yeah, I mean, I do still have the followers on Twitch though. Maybe one day I will put it to use. I think Twitch is a really cool platform, and I need to professionalize my setup a little bit. But yeah, it would be cool to do something else. I definitely love playing sports video games. I'll be honest, right now, I got Game Pass on Xbox One.
Yeah.
I'm here living alone. My girlfriend's in school. So I got some time to play video games is basically what I'm saying. And on Game Pass, they just put all the sports games on there, which is great because I don't want to spend $70 on Madden or NHL or FIFA, but I'll download them all for Game Pass. So I've started playing a Dynasty in Madden. I've been playing a Dynasty in NHL just personally. So maybe I will do another series. Maybe I'll do another game. Maybe I'll do the same game. I don't know. I'll think.
Even just the streams. I think your community would show up even if you were like, hey, tonight I'm going to be playing Madden for a couple hours.
You know what I would love to do is to do a series in college hoops with Scott. And it would be tough because he lives in the suburbs and I live in the city, and he is a baby and I have a blog. I guess I have nothing, but it would be hard for him to be able to make it work. But that would be my ideal. If I can do anything, we start it again, me versus Scott. We build up the mythology of it. And, we create sort of like, maybe Scott is like Hulk Hogan joining NWO. He's like the bad guy. Everyone hates him. I'm the underdog. I lose a lot. Scott was usually winning a little bit more frequently than me. So yeah, that would be best case scenario, but we'll see what happens.
And maybe you guys could hire a writer to cover you so you wouldn't have to do the labor intensive part. That's a way somebody could break in, right? As a sports writer, like the minor leagues. Like I started with fake sports. I was covering this 40-year dynasty mode. People liked it, and that's how I got into it.
Love it. Let's do it.
So yeah, that person could start like a Patreon account.
Well, I got to check my freelance budget, maybe we could work that person in, but yeah, I like that would be my favorite thing to do to follow it up. But I just don't think it's realistic at this point in my life. I definitely could have done it when I was in my 20s and when my friend lived closer, but it would be tough to, I think, actually pull that off now. But that would be my personal ideal way to do it next, how to continue it. Otherwise, I haven't really thought too much about what I'm going to do next in terms of streaming or in terms of, this series. Someone did give me the idea, though, that you can export your team in the game.
Okay.
So I might just export my year 40 team and then just like load them back into year 1 again and have to go against like Tyler Hansbrough in North Carolina and just keep it going.
So I'm another 40-year dynasty if you kind of pretended you were in year 41 with the same team you took back. Oh, that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's oh man, that sounds like a way to get trapped into it again for a while.
Forever.
That always happens in these games. It's like, oh, if I win this championship, I will retire. Then you're like, oh, maybe we could repeat. And then all of a sudden you're 10 more seasons into whatever you were before you promised yourself you'd stop. Thanks so much for doing this. I wanted to end with a question about your writing and other journalists, SB Nation. So what's the best way everybody can support you and your writing outside of your fake basketball team? and the other writers. I love reading SB Nation. I was bummed when people got furloughed. I know some people are back, but not everybody. And I know that journalists all over the place too often are running into situations, even outside of a pandemic. So any thoughts on things everybody who loves reading all these people can do to support you guys?
Well, I'm lucky that I have my job back. So there's no need to support me. But, the support people have given me throughout this, especially when I didn't have a job, was really amazing. And I'm so grateful for, people being generous and throwing me a few bucks on Venmo. Some of the support was really incredible. So that's the first thing. But at this point, I'm lucky not to be in a position where I need that at all. A lot of my former coworkers at SB Nation started a magazine called Publication to Be Named Later. They just dropped their first issue. It's 200 pages. It's absolutely incredible. So if you want to support anything, support that. I think it's a terrific job featuring some great reporting, some great writing. There's some really cool art in there too. So check out Publication to Be Named Later. I think you can buy it for $1, but you should give them more than that. It's like a bunch of people who worked really hard on it. So if you have disposable income, I'd say, and you want to support it, support that. A bunch of my other former colleagues have Substack newsletters. There's Tom Ziller, who did a longtime newsletter for SB Nation.
Yeah.
He's continued doing it himself on Substack. Love Tom Ziller. He's the OG. I was reading him when I was in college. I was starstruck by him the first time we became coworkers. He's still doing a great job, so you could support Tom's. There's also Mike Prada, who's one of the sharpest basketball writers around, in my opinion. Does a lot of X's and O's coverage. He's got a Substack. Matt Ellentuck covered the WNBA and the NBA for us. He's one of the best voices in terms of women's basketball, knows the league inside out. So you could support Matt's newsletter. And then, there's a few other people, former SB Nation people, who have projects going. Split Zone Duo is a podcast between Alex Kirshner and Richard Johnson that's absolutely terrific. Both of those guys are flat out stars, and it's been really cool to see their careers sort of develop over the last few months. So there's definitely a lot of things to support. I'm lucky right now where I don't need it at the moment because I have a job back. But yeah, it's definitely a tough time to sort of stake your claim out as a writer. And I think that, I got really fortunate to be able to do it with this project through mostly blind luck. It's just like a combination of the timing and the circumstance surrounding it that, this was able to catch on a little bit. And it's been a really fun project to do. I still love doing the streams. I look forward to them. I think about the Dynasty at night sometimes where I'm like, who's going to be my 2 guard in 3 years from now when this guy leaves? So it's still going strong. Hopefully the end of the Dynasty will, bring some renewed interest. I kind of want to set up maybe the stakes of it. I think I should lay that out in a future post, try to bring some more people back in. And if you have followed my writing, most people have followed it, I think, from my work writing about the Bulls and covering the NBA draft. Thank you for enduring this project, because I've definitely tweeted about it and retweeted things about it 1,000 times, 2,000 times, 5,000 times. So I appreciate anyone who hasn't gotten into the project just enduring me doing this. And to the people who have gotten the project, who have gotten into it, they've made it one of the best moments of my career to do this. And I sort of view it like my book. I don't know, was I ever going to write a book? I had some ideas for a book. For a while, when I was younger, I wanted to write a book on Derrick Rose. And then Derrick Rose became the type of person that I didn't really want to continue writing about and associating with. So I was like, I don't really have a book idea now. And maybe this is my book. I did 40 years. I want to look up the numbers on how much I wrote, because a lot of these posts were 4,000 or 5,000 words, and that was only covering a third of the season.
Yeah, you do those continuation posts, right?
Dude, I think I just wrote I probably wrote 200,000 words or more than that. I don't know. I'm just throwing a number out there, but the sheer volume of word count is through the roof. I mean, it would be like a very, very, very long book if someone were to like put it together. And also I should shout out my friend Tan, who I met. He was a reader in Japan. And after the first championship, he wrote an ebook, fictionalized account of my dynasty. And I was a character in the book. I kind of edited the book for him. And you can buy that book. It's pretty cool. He even released a sequel for my second championship, which happened in year 20. And it's like, that's one of the craziest things that ever happened to me. Like, some guy in Japan was so inspired by my series that he wrote a book on it. So
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. And I just think it's, it's a reason for people who, if they have some idea, they think, oh, this is crazy. I don't know if I should do this. There's so many times where people do things like what you've done, where they talk about, at first I was not thinking anybody was going to be into this, but they do it, thankfully, because then all these cool things happen. I mean, you think about all the projects, all of us, and so many people have probably sat on because we were worried about how would people react? Is this the right thing to do? Should I do this? Well, you did it with this, and like, look at all the stuff it's created. It's really amazing.
Owe it all to the community. The community is the best. And just the way they've been so supportive of the project and stuck with it. I mean, there's no way I'd still be doing it if people weren't into it. And I feel really happy to still have it. And yeah, I don't know. Who knows? I guess it'll just linger out there. And then, 5 years from now, maybe I'll bump into someone. Hopefully I can maintain my career, because we know it's a volatile industry in media. But I'll just be the guy who did the Western Illinois thing.
One of the greatest coaches of fake NCAA history. That's how you'll go down. You referenced something, and I'll close this out here in a minute, but you said something, and I wasn't sure if this is how things worked, but was this project a big part of the reason, or the reason SB Nation brought you back when they did? Was it the success of the project?
I'm not really sure how much I should say about what went into that, but I don't really think so.
Okay.
But I do think that, like, when I went back to work, it was a discussion. Like, should I bring this back? Some people were like, yeah, you should definitely do it. Some people were like, I don't know if you need to do it. But ultimately, I just felt like if I was going to put so much work into it, I at least wanted, it to go on the company. And there's still like, people still read the emails, and it'll still get out there on Google, and it'll still get shared sometimes. And, time on page, people really spend a lot of time on page when I'm writing 4,000 words and putting in multiple videos in it. Yeah. So it's had its benefits even still as it's winded down. So I don't really know how much it played into them bringing me back. But I will say it gave me some purpose during what would have been a really tough period for me. And that is what I was, thankful for. Like, it gave me somewhere to channel my creative energy, and it gave me something to do while I was unemployed for 3 months. So definitely it's been, one of the best highlights of my career.
Well, thanks for doing it. I mean, I'm really glad at that moment you thought, should I do this or not? I'm really glad you said yes, because it brought me joy too. Like, watching those streams, rooting for a team, like I was rooting for a real team. It was awesome. So I really appreciate that you did it. And I appreciate that you took the time to chat about it. And I wish you luck chasing down Wooden. Cheat if you have to. No, keep it honest. But I hope you are able to make a crazy run here over your last several seasons.
Well, we just brought in what might be our best recruiting class ever. We got the number 12 recruit. We got the number 4 small forward, who's a top 40 recruit, 6'8", great shooter. Looks like he's going to be a stud. The number 12 overall recruit's a 6'3" point guard. He looks like he's going to be good. And then we got a 6'11" power forward and a 7-foot center. So I think that recruiting class ranked number 5 in the country. It's either the strongest or second strongest we've ever had. I'm hoping that they can win me a couple titles. And then I'm recruiting for 2 scholarships on Sunday. We need a shooting guard to pair with them, because I have a 4-man class. The one spot I didn't recruit for is shooting guard. So we need a stud shooting guard. And we're going to try to finish it out strong and see how many more banners we can hang.
You just did a hype video just now, basically, without the video. That was great. So that's all starting to unfold Sunday night on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Ricky. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and to everybody who commented too. I really appreciate it. And if anybody wants to, chat more about fake sports dynasties and tell me who else you think I should talk to, Ricky gave me a great suggestion on this show tonight for somebody I can talk to about NCAA football. But
Coach Luke, Coach Matt, talk to Abby. I'm going to
Yeah.
email you a lot of people. You can check some of them out and see what you want to do.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it, everybody. And I'll talk to you guys next time.